Okay, folks, this is maybe the one that I've been most excited to talk about. So I've just released a single called Wink of the Lighthouse. There are two instruments on it that I've built. The first is the drums, and the second is this. So this is what I'm calling an ululophone. It's basically a balloon membrane attached to a recorder body, which I cut up with a hacksaw, which frankly is what I think plastic school recorders deserve. So it sounds like this. It's a fickle instrument. The pitching changes if the mouthpiece gets too warm, which of course it does if it's blown into. It can be quite tricky to play because it's very pitchy. I made this one during the 2020 lockdowns, and it features quite a lot on my first album. But on this album, I think I'd gotten better at playing it, and there are some more complex runs in it. So I want to look at that today. These are some of the things that I like most about the ululophone parts on Wink of the Lighthouse. I'm going to play the run in isolation and then in the context of the track. Here we go. The horns come in about halfway through the song. There are two that I'm using on this track. There's this one, and then there's this little one, which unfortunately I broke the balloon membrane, so I'm going to have to replace that. It's got a much tinnier, higher pitched tone. So that comes in about here. So that higher one is this. Let's have a listen to that in context. So that's a good example of what it's doing. I really have two favorite ululophone parts in this track. This is the first one here. I really like how the harmonies are layered. Some people have said it sounds kind of Steely Dan-y. Huge compliment for me, and I really appreciate when people say that. So, you know, if you ever feel like flattering me, please say I sound like Steely Dan. I'll take that compliment any day. But one of the things I quite like about the ululophones is that they're very tricky to pitch. And as such, you can sometimes hear in the recording when they're slightly out of tune with each other, but I think it gives it some character. So that's the first of my two favorite ululophone parts on this track. Actually, there are three. Here's the second bit. On its own, it sounds like we're announcing that the king has arrived at court, whatever it is that they taught us in the fairy tales. In isolation, I think it sounds kind of regal, but in the context of the song, it sounds like this. Hair in the new, staggered release in the pieces, I know my name. And that's sort of the high point of the song, so I think that the layering of those ululophone parts builds tension, and which leads to a more powerful release at the climax of the song. You know what I'm trying to say. And then my third favorite part is this little run here. Boy, did that take me a lot of goes. When I was recording, there were many, many failed takes of that part. It doesn't sound like much, but as somebody who doesn't play the recorder, it definitely took some getting used to. Well, I can't remember how to play it anymore, can I? Oh, I found another bit that I like. Check out this harmony here. This is quite cool. It's really neat recording something and then releasing it like 18 months later because you forget what you've put on the track, much like this part. I should say there's a tiny little bit of trumpet on this track, but it's a very tiny little bit. It's really buried in the bottom of the mix because I impulse rented this trumpet in July of 2021, right before we went into lockdown again for 3 months, which is good because I had a trumpet in lockdown. I think my partner would beg to differ on that front because they're very loud instruments. They don't sound very good if you can't play them very well. Anyway, I rented it, and then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to keep it. So I bought it for the remainder of the cost. While I'm slowly getting better at it, the truth is that I only practice it when I have a part that I'm trying to play in a song. So I'm not very good at it, and I don't know what the specific notes are. I just sort of fumble around until I find the notes that I'm looking for. So really, I'm a terrible trumpet player, but I really like how the sort of brassy timbre of the trumpet blends with the ululophone. It just works really well. But I've buried it at the very bottom of the mix because it just doesn't sound very good on its own. I think that's all I have to say about the ululophone today. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you want to learn how to make one, just hit me up and I can teach you. Unless I become famous, in which case I don't want to be hounded by requests, but that doesn't look like it's very likely. So post a comment or whatever if this is something that you want to learn how to make and play yourself. That's everything. Goodbye!